Good morning, good evening, and good day. Welcome to Attack Power Gaming. Thank you so much for watching. Today we are going over our anti-air tab, so it's time to start finding out how to keep yourself from dying from your opponent's air power. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel for more tutorials and gaming from Steel Division 2 and soon to come Warno. So let's hop right in here. We're going to go with one of my personal favorite divisions. Good old 78 Sturm. Our anti-air tab. Now, if you watched my original How to Build a Deck Better, how to not suck at building your deck, I noted anti-air as being one of the most important tabs that you must have stuff in. I had noted the anti-tank, anti-air, and infantry were the three most important ones. Why? Because these allow you to actually survive the game. These are the ones that will keep you alive. If you are missing stuff in these tabs, anti-tank, I mean, if you have good tanks, you can do less anti-tank. There is no replacement for anti-air. And your question might be, well, what about fighters? Nope. Fighters are not the same thing. Fighters in the air tab are for killing enemy planes, like actually killing them and shooting them down out of the sky. Anti-air is used to stop the opponent's planes from bombing your stuff and taking advantage of their air power. Now, anti-air can certainly shoot down planes. It happens all the time. It's great when they do. But the fact is, you should not bank on your anti-air to actually destroy the enemy's airplanes. I know that sounds ridiculous. Isn't that the whole point of anti-air? Yes, in real life, absolutely, that's the point of it. But in this game, these things don't kill planes that quickly. I mean, especially high resilience plane, so anything medium or above, it takes a long time unless they fly over your anti-air, and unless you have 2 to 3 batteries of anti-air guns shooting. That's really not what they're designed to do. It's really not what they're going to do. And as disappointing as that is, that's the fact of it. If you actually want to shoot down planes, you got to use fighters. But if you want to keep your guys from getting bombed and hit and attacked and so on and so forth, you need anti-air. So we're going to hop right in here. The nice thing about the 78 Sturm and why I'm showing these guys off is because they actually include the 3 main types of anti-air. We have our light anti-air, we have our medium anti-air, and then we have our heavy anti-air. Okay, and these aren't like actually what they're called. They're just called anti-aircraft guns. In my mind, they're categorized like that because that's how they function. So light anti-air is generally any 20 millimeter, 25 millimeter. For the Russians, they have those machine gun trucks and things. The Allies have those kind of things. Americans have the 50 cals, all those good stuff. That's light stuff. Medium is generally 37 mils. So anything 37 mils, 40 mils, those middle numbers there. A lot of Bofors for the Allies. The Germans have the 37 mil, flak 43. And then you have your heavy AA, which for the Germans is the flak 88. This is the highlighted heavy anti-air. There's other ones too, the 105, which you can only find the Toulon, which is really powerful. For the Allies, they do have some 75 millimeters, some 80 millimeter anti-air guns. So basically, those are your heavy weapons. So let's talk about each use and function because they don't actually work the same way. Let's start with the heavy because theirs is actually the most simple. These are for stopping enemy planes from bombing your stuff. They supply the most suppression. They have the highest suppress rate of all the anti-air. So they're going to, when you see that little red bar on the planes from them getting hit by anti-air, this will fill it up the fastest. But on the flip side, these shoot the slowest. So you have to be aware that one of these days, 188 will not stop a bomber from bombing your stuff. It will not stop a heavy bomber. It will not stop a light, a ground attack plane bomber. It just doesn't do it at stuff. You're going to need at least 2 pieces of anti-air to actually full-on stop bombers from hitting your stuff. I mean, that's just the truth. Unless they're flying deep into your territory, most of the time they're not. They're attacking a unit on the front line, and you're not going to have your AA on the front line. Do not put your anti-air on the front line. You really don't want to do that. You don't generally get that much of it, and you don't want to be losing it stupidly on the front line to an infantry squad. That's not a good use for it. So these guys will generally be behind the front lines, which means, you know, it's going to take them a little longer to hit enemy troops. These guys are kind of how you reach out further. These are a great start to stopping enemy airplanes, beginning the suppression process of stopping their attack. These guys will not shoot down planes. I mean, once in a while you'll get lucky and one of these will actually shoot a plane down. Even if you have 3 or 4 of these shooting at a plane, very unlikely they're going to shoot the plane down. That's just not what they do. The nice thing about heavy AA is usually they have some sort of AP power. In this case, the 88's a very effective anti-tank gun. Use it as such, it can be very effective. That's not his main role, but it can work that way. So that's what your heavy AA is for, and it's very important that you start moving this the moment after it shoots. That goes for most of your anti-air. So AA is a very high value target for artillery. If the opponent's playing with any sort of artillery whatsoever, they're going to target your AA. Killing that opens up the skies and allows them to use their planes to full effectiveness. So please keep that in mind. After it shoots, try to move it. I know it's a lot of extra micro, but really try to get these guys out of the position they were in. And heavy AA takes a long time. They're very, very slow. If you try to start moving after the artillery starts dropping, they won't get out in time. They just won't. They'll die. So make sure you start moving these immediately. Our next category, we're actually going to talk about light AA. We're going to hop back to light AA, which is our 20 mils, 25 mils, all that good stuff. These guys you will need multiples of. And the nice thing is, though, they're so cheap you can bring in multiples of them. They can be very effective. They used to be totally garbage. They used to be completely useless. They wouldn't stop a fly flying over your troops. Now they kind of buff these, and 2 of your 20 mils can do some damage. These guys can shoot some planes down. They're not super effective at actually stopping bombing runs, though. Their range is too short and it takes them too long. 3 of these will. 2 of them will generally come up a little bit short. They'll suppress it right after the bombs get dropped. One thing to note specifically for the Germans, a lot of times the flak 20 mil, the 38 here, will have a transport that's actually another 20 mil. Very effective. It doubles the number of 20 mils that you have. It can be really good. Now the only issue is then you're calling in an 80-point unit or a 90-point unit instead of a 40-point unit, which can be a little tough if you're trying to just call in little piecemeal pieces of AA, which I don't suggest doing anyway. You want at least 2. When it comes to light AA like this, you want at least 2 of these. Otherwise, they're really not effective. One's is actually going to do nothing. It's really not. It may be a very bad resilience fighter. It will do some damage to. But outside of that, there's no point. So I would suggest bringing these guys in. The Sturm don't have it, but a lot of times they'll have that second thing. The Allies have the Dushkas and smaller like truck AA. It's not super effective. I do bring it in. It's 10 points and why not kind of thing is usually my thought process with that, but many people don't because they don't do a lot, but just that little extra could get you there at some point. So remember to bring these guys in multiples. Remember to spread them out, put them different places. Do not bunch up your AA. That's a terrible idea. Don't bunch it up. It's going to die. 1 artillery shell, boom, everything's dead. These don't have a lot of resilience. The heavy AA can take a couple hits, but these guys will go really quick. Finally, we have our medium AA, our 37 mils, our 40 mils. These are, at least my preferred AA. These are the best balance between suppressing the enemy plane and actually shooting it down. A mix is always great. So you can see here I have both medium and heavy, and I didn't want to use up another slot in this because this is generally plenty. But when I can take a 37 mil, when I can take a Beaufort's, I take it. I take that stuff because these are the things that do a lot of work for you. These are pretty good plane killers. They will. 2 of these will have an okay chance of shooting a plane down. 2 of them will absolutely stop a bomber from bombing you. So keeping that in mind, I always bring these. Always bring them when the opportunity arises. Very effective. If you can get them at a veterancy, even better. Sometimes I'll bring in only 2. I really wanted 3. I wanted to be able to last. Actually, in my most recent Let's Play game that I'm going to post here soon, having that extra AA made a difference. Having that one extra. It was small, but it is a difference. So these are your preferred thing. For all of these troops, one thing to remember, and this is the same, this is basically a 4 version of the 20 mil. These are strong. I mean, an SDKFZ 7.1, solid piece of AA. It can stop a plane by itself. It probably won't shoot it down. The problem is you're concentrating all your anti-aircraft into one target. A single artillery drop will destroy this, so you are going to lose a lot. That's 120 points. You also don't get many of them. It's generally much better to get 6 of these in A. You actually end up with more, so you get 6 guns instead of 4, and also these can be spread out around the map. So I strongly suggest individual 20 mils over your SDKFZ 7.1s. All right, not that the 7.1s are bad, they're just not nearly as good at being able to spread these guys out. In terms of placing your AA, it's actually really important that you think about the placement of the AA. If you put an AA piece in the middle of a green forest, it won't shoot at anything. It needs to have line of sight. I know you might be thinking, well, they're in the air, everyone can see them. That's not how the game mechanics work in terms of line of sight. You have to make sure that they actually can get a clean line of sight on stuff. Now, you can definitely put your AA in a little bit of a thicker area and they can still shoot, but you're going to want it like, so if you're in a town, you can put them in an open area in a town. Like, so if there's a square of buildings that is empty, you can throw it in the middle there and it will get a pretty good line of sight and can shoot stuff. You just can't have things directly in front of it. You can't put this guy right behind a building. A building's right here, or say a forest right in the front edge of a back edge of a forest. They're not going to shoot. You're not actually going to do anything. So just be aware that line of sight does actually matter for your AA, and if you ever notice that they're just not shooting at planes until they're like flying directly over, then you're going to want to check their line of sight and make sure that you haven't put them into a weird spot that blocks their line of sight, because then your AA is just not going to shoot and you're going to be sitting there thinking, well, why did I call this crap in? Well, it's because you're not placing it correctly. You're leaving it in a bad spot. So those are our basic ideas and basic rules of how to use your AA. Like I said, you're going to want to keep all the ranges in mind. The 20 mil shoot the shortest. These longer range flak 88s and such can do a lot more damage at range, so you can keep them a little further back and they can still be effective. You're always going to essentially need at least 2 pieces of AA to stop a plane, to actually stop it from bombing you. So just keep that in mind. Calling in a singular piece of AA is not going to do much. It might scare the opponent off a little bit. It might make them second guess flying their troops directly over yours. Especially, I mean, it will scare off a plane from flying over your lines into your back lines to, say, bomb an artillery piece. But other than that, you need 2. You're going to need 2 pieces of artillery to get the job done. So keep those things in mind when using your AA. I hope this was helpful, guys. If you enjoyed this content, please drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more SD2 and soon to be Warno content.